So we all know that pump-up songs exist. If you guys need an adrenaline rush wherever you're going, to the gym, if you're going on a marathon run for whatever reason, if you're going to perform on stage, whatever the activity may be, pump-up songs are a staple. Now, if pump-up movies existed, this would probably be the quintessential pump-up film. Oh yeah, here we are, guys. Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, the culmination of a brilliant trilogy from Peter Jackson. It, of course, stars your usual suspects in Elijah Wood, Ian McKellen, Sean Astin, Viggo Mortenson, etc. And this movie basically brings finality to everything. It's the final confrontation between the forces of good and evil, fighting for control of the future of Middle-earth. Frodo and Sam reach Mordor in their quest to destroy the One Ring, with Gollum or Smeagol in tow, while Aragorn stalls the forces of evil, and he's leading the forces of good in the stone city of Minas Tirith. So I think I mentioned in a previous review, but I did not see any of the Lord of the Rings movies in theaters. Probably because I was between the ages of 5 and 7 around the time of release, and let's just say as a little kid, I probably didn't have the patience to sit in a theater for this long. But let me tell you a bit of a personal story. I was out with my mom and my aunt and my cousins. We were out doing something. We might have been at the amusement park. I can't really remember exactly. But we were driving home, and I vividly remember sitting in the back seat of a drive-thru, and my mom and my aunt had their Oscar polls and their picks in front of them. And the reason why was because the Oscars were the next day. And every time Return of the King was mentioned in the category, my aunt, without hesitation, said Lord of the Rings. And lo and behold, she was absolutely right. Return of the King is the first ever fantasy movie of its kind to win every nomination at the Academy Awards, including Best Picture. That is unheard of. A sweep like that has never happened before, and honestly, probably will never happen again. That should tell you everything you need to know about the Lord of the Rings, and honestly, it goes without saying, because this movie is utterly incredible. This is easily my favorite of the trilogy. It's definitely the most action-packed of the trilogy. Peter Jackson directs the holy hell out of this thing. All of these effects are just magnificent. The scope of this movie and the atmosphere is just as grand as it's always been. And the music just adds so much more to the scale of not just the environment, but of the moment. And there's just so many instances in Return of the King where you just want to stand up and cheer, no matter where you're watching it. Especially as it goes with Aragorn, which the movie is built around him. The subtitle is Return of the King. This is where he comes into form as the leader, and oh my god, Viggo Mortenson is such a badass in this movie. His darn near Han Solo-esque reckless abandonment in many moments. I'm specifically thinking of the time where he's running, just charging this evil army, just charging into the mountain, even when Legolas and Gimli are just like, no, this isn't a good idea. I do not fear death. And you're just like, yes, Aragorn! And he is just so damn cool in these action sequences. His coronation is certainly well received and well warranted. That's the thing about this entire film. Everything just makes so much sense, and everything comes to a halt in this movie. All the loose ends are tied up here. Peter Jackson is leaving no question as to the finality of everything. Not just with how darn big these action sequences are, but just in these little character moments. Frodo and Sam are very often pitted against one another in this movie by the deception of Gollum. And Gollum is super interesting in Return of the King, because I always felt like Two Towers was his big, gigantic origin story. So yeah, it is very strange that Return of the King opens up with a flashback sequence showing how Smeagol is enticed by the ring, and it basically shows that love at first sight sequence with his precious. And yeah, it's a little strange that it opens up Return of the King, because you would think that with Two Towers focusing more on Gollum and his origins, that would be a perfect way to open up the Two Towers. But no, especially seeing how just freaking maniacal Gollum is in this film and just how his character wraps up, it makes all the more sense in the world. And while there was much more comedy to be had in the Two Towers, Return of the King and what he's doing here it just feels so dirty and gross. Overall, this whole movie is incredibly dark. The ghost people that Aragorn is encountering, I always love when a fantasy world like this just digs deep into its darkest depths, and Return of the King certainly does that. But come on, with how everything wraps up here, Frodo and Gollum's fist fight atop the mouth of Sauron, when Frodo finally drops the ring into that molten lava below, and even then Frodo is very conflicted. This is just the perfect combination of an epic conclusion with deep character analysis, because Frodo very much hesitates to throw the ring into the lava because he has very much grown enticed by the ring himself, which makes it all the more heartbreaking when you see the look on his face when he's hanging off the edge of that cliff. It's almost as if his life has no purpose anymore without the ring. But that's where Samwise Gamgee comes in, and he is just basically saying there's more to life worth living for. Sam is just so smart. He was able to see right through Gollum's deception and him setting up him and his best friend to fight and quarrel. And my god, Sean Astin, this may be the best performance of his entire career, and I've loved him in everything he's done. These films, The Goonies, Rudy, this in my eyes is the best Sean Astin has ever been. All these actors are just throwing their hearts into this thing. Cate Blanchett is in this movie. Ian McKellen, of course, is just so damn cool as Gandalf. I could throw all the praise onto Return of the King that I can with this video, but let's face it, it would be kind of redundant because Return of the King is absolutely incredible. You've heard everybody talk about how inspiring this movie was, and it still is inspiring to this very day. This is easily my favorite of the trilogy. Return of the King absolutely gets an A+. Phew, and that is the original Lord of the Rings trilogy, folks. I hope you guys enjoyed these reviews as much as I did in making them. I will be continuing the playlist by looking at the Hobbit trilogy before I dig into Rings of Power. If you guys want to stay up to date with these videos, as well as all the other new content where I'm talking about all these other new releases in television and cinema, do consider smashing that subscribe button and that notification bell as hard as you possibly can. And heck, while you're at it, feel free to throw this video a like on your way out the door. That would be very, very helpful. Lots more to look forward to, guys. It's a big, big month to wrap up this blockbuster-worthy summer. We're going to be looking at Bullet Train. I will be watching Prey on Hulu, which is getting rave reviews. And of course, I will be talking about the Hobbit trilogy and the build-up to Rings of Power, as I've said. Thank you guys so very much for continuing to support this channel. It really, really does mean the world. And with all that being said, Back Talk, commence!